doobie doobie doo. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is gonna be something that I've never really done on my channel before. If you guys follow me on my Instagram, which will be right here, it's at Corie Life. I just recently finished up my last sewing class at BYU, and I have been sewing since I was 8 years old, I believe, and I've just always really loved it. Family and Consumer Sciences Education is my major, which means that I will be certified at the end of April to teach the sewing classes, foods, all of the home ec, which is not kosher to say anymore, classes. So long story short, I love sewing, and I know that there are a lot of sewers out there on YouTube, but I wanted to share with you guys what I keep in my sewing kit. This is what my sewing kit looks like. It's just this big sewing basket. I got it on Amazon. I will link it down below for you guys, as well as some of these different tools that I will be showing you guys. I'll link them down below if I can find them. I wanted to share with you what I keep in here. Pretty much everything that I need to do besides like special colors of thread and whatnot, I can accomplish with the things that I have in here. So let's go ahead and get started. As you open the lid of my sewing basket, there is like a little pocket, and in there I keep like 15 different seam rippers apparently. Didn't realize I have that many. I have 4 seam rippers. And these are not even the ones that I use. I have another one that I use all the time. Varying sizes of hand sewing needles, as well as a point turner. So the point turner is used if I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say you sew like a collar corner and you sew it inside out, and then you need to turn it so the way that it looks, you like use this to like get the corner nice and pointy. I don't really keep anything in the little pin cushion that's in the lid because everything falls out of it. I'll usually just keep like 1 hand sewing needle in there. And then my sewing basket has this like clear separator beneath, like there's like a bucket, like just empty area, but this has like little dividers in it. So I'll show you what I keep in here. In this front section, I have pencil-y kind of thing. I have 2 seam gauges, and basically they have these little sliders on them, and you can put it to whatever length you need it. I specifically like this for turning hems because you can turn it to like a 1/4 inch, and then you know that you're getting it at exactly 1/4 inch long. So I have 2 of those. I have 2 pencils, just mechanical pencils. You'd be surprised at how often these get used, either writing notes to myself on my pattern guide or just making little marks on my fabric. I have 2 white fabric pencils, which I actually rarely use. I have the other thing I usually always keep, but they're all right here right now, I usually keep 1 of these pens in this little spot too as I'm working on a project. And what these are is they are erasable pens, and basically how these work for me in sewing is I will be like marking something on the fabric, and you can write on the fabric with these pens, and then they just iron out. So with the steam and the heat, they just disappear. So love those, and those will normally be in that little pencil spot. This is a tracing wheel, so I'll just show you these now. In the bottom basket part of my sewing basket, in the bottom like bucket part, I have all of these different chalk papers. There's yellow, white, and blue, and you basically lay these out on your fabric, and then you put like your pattern piece on top of it, and like you use the tracing wheel to mark your darts or your dots or different things that you need to see on your actual piece of fabric. So I also keep 2 tape measures in here, and in this other little square compartment I have 3 bobbins that I'm actually going to take out right now. This was for my last project, the coat that I sewed. I'll insert a picture right here of the finished product. If you want to see like the process, I have a highlight saved to my Instagram. I also have black thread with a hand sewing needle in it. This is just like really cheap thread. I just use this for hand sewing when I need to. This is the seam ripper that I actually use. I've had this since I was probably about 8 years old. It's just bigger, has a cap, and so I keep that in this big spot over here. Over here I also have music staff paper, which I use to sew bound buttonholes, and chalk, a broken piece of chalk. On Amazon, I bought like a 20 pack of like Taylor's chalk, and there's like 20 of them, and so I just put one in here, and the other I keep like with the rest of my sewing stuff, so I just keep one in at all times. And I like these because they're pointy on the edges, and so you can just like really quick draw lines on your fabric. I also have this tracing chalk wheel. It's from the brand Le Summit. I just bought it on Amazon, and it's got like a little turnstile thingy right here, and this is even more precise for drawing lines, so I'll use like a ruler if I'm needing to know some very straight line. Like darts are really good to use with this. So. And lastly, in this little clear container, I have my nippers, and these are Ginger nippers. This took me a little bit to get used to actually, because they're just a little bit different than normal nippers. Okay, first thing that I'm going to show you that's in the bottom bucket is my bobbin holder. This is from Dritz, and apparently my sewing case just like flew everywhere. Alright, that looks a little bit better. There is my bobbin holder, and I already showed you the erasable pens that I use. And I have my everyday pin holder, and these that I have on here are glass head pins, which are pretty much the only ones that I use now, and I have an extra little case of them, as well as a whole other pin cushion full, a whole other magnetic pin cushion, which I also keep in my everyday sewing kit. But I only use glass head pins because you can iron over them, and because they're glass, they don't melt into your fabric, so super safe, makes your sewing life a lot easier. This is a different pin cushion, and all of these are plastic head pins, and sometimes I'll use these like when I'm cutting out fabric, just to save me using my glass head pins and save them from getting too dull. So I also keep these in here, but primarily I use the glass head pins. I have 2 pairs of scissors. I have 1 pair of paper cutting scissors. These are just cheap paper cutting scissors, and this is what I use to cut out my pattern pieces that are made out of tissue paper and any other paper that I need to use. And then these are my nice shears. These are Ginger shears, and these are for fabric only, and I just have like fabric scraps. This was mostly so that while I was in the sewing lab, I knew they were mine because we all had the same scissors. In here right now, I also have this toggle that I need to put on my coat, just so that it has a closure. I have 3 spools of thread, and then I always keep a bright color of thread that I probably would never use in a project, and I use this for tailor's tacks, which is just another marking method to mark dots and things in your fabric so it's easy to see. I have 2 rolls of tape. This is the 1/2 inch Scotch tape. This is really great for pattern making, if you're making adjustments to your pattern pieces. I have a chopstick, which before I had my fancy point turner, this is what I would use. A little box of push pins for pattern alterations and safety pins. And lastly, in my sewing kit, I have pattern weights. These are Dritz brand, I believe. I threw away the little label, but they're just little fabric pattern weights, and when you're cutting stuff out, or especially when you're working with knits, or really thick fabrics, it's easier to just use pattern weights instead of like pinning everything together. There are 2 other things that I keep in my sewing kit. Well, I keep with me at all times. They don't fit in my sewing kit, and they are 2 different types of rulers. This is a Westcott 18 by 2 ruler. It has the 1/16 on both long edges, and then it has each marking for 1/8 of an inch. This comes in so handy with sewing for everything. I use it for absolutely everything. I could not sew without this ruler. And I also have this curved ruler, which has a 5/8 inch seam allowance. This is good for pattern making, so that you can just like add your seam allowance, and it's also good for drawing curves in pattern making. And that is it for what I keep in my sewing kit. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you found this interesting. Let me know what kind of other videos you'd like to know from like my fields, like interior design, foods, any sort of that stuff. Let me know what you'd like to see from me. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not already, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye!